Ma'am, you can begin.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished dignitaries, and the valued audience. A very warm welcome to each and every one of you. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome you all to the fourth session of the prestigious Faculty Development Program 2023 conducted by the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka in collaboration with Emerald Publishing. First and foremost, I am honored to welcome Professor Atula Nyanapala, Dean, Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. With great respect, let me also welcome Professor Jayantha N. Devasiri, Chairperson of the FDP, Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. With gratitude, I would like to welcome Ms. Sangeeta Menon, Chairperson of the FDP, Emerald Publishing, and Ms. Disha Lakkanpal, Chief Organizer of the FDP, Emerald Publishing. We are privileged to have Dr. Abhishek Bell, Assistant Professor, Management Development Institute, Gurugram, India, as the resource person for Session 4. Today, he discusses the topic, how to improve your research profile, Google, Scholar, Publons, ORCID, and Scopus. Next, I would like to welcome Ms. Kaushalyani Ruandika, Coordinating Secretary of the FDP, Ms. Dibuthu Vijayaratna, Assistant Secretary of the FDP, and all the distinguished participants from Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka and Emerald Publishing. In addition to the distinguished guests, we are equally delighted to have valued participants, mainly academics from all the universities worldwide, researchers, corporate managers, administrative staff from various corners of the world for this remarkable online webinar series. Once again, I extend a warm welcome to all of you and wish you a productive and enlightening session. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to introduce the main speaker of today's session, and it's a great pleasure for me to announce him. Dr. Abhishek Bell is a researcher in the area of information systems and management. He has earned his second PhD from the Indian Institute of Technology, IIT, Bombay, where his research is in the area of crowdfunding and gamification. He is a winner of the prestigious Naik and Rastogi Award for Excellence in PhD from IIT Bombay. He holds rich experience in teaching, research, and consultancy. He has taught subjects like business analytics, marketing analytics, gamification, marketing research, and qualitative data analytics. He has also served as a senior manager research at Center for Innovation Incubation and Entrepreneurship, IIM Ahmedabad. His research is in the area of business analytics and decision sciences with a focus on gamification, stakeholder engagement, sustainability, and e-commerce startups. He is an associate editor of the Journal of Global Information Management, International Journal of Manpower, International Studies of Management and Organization, Asia Pacific Journal of Business Studies, Journal of Cases on Information Technology, and in an area editor in South Asia of the International Journal of Emergency Services. He features on the editorial board of many journals like Journal of Global Marketing, Journal of Electronic Commerce in Organizations, Journal of Promotion Management, Young Consumer Management Decision, and Society and Business Review. He has edited 3 books and is editing a couple of special issues in Journal of International Repute. He has published in journals like Harvard Business Review, Industrial Marketing Management, International Journal of Information Management, IEEE Transactions on Engineering Management, Production Planning and Control, Annals of Operations Research, Journal of Business Research, Technology Forecasting and Social Change, International Marketing Review, Journal of Enterprise Information Systems, Industrial Management, Data Systems, and etc. He was also a visiting scholar at South University of Science and Technology, China in 2018. He has been a resource person for various management development programs for companies like Wipro, Godrej, Tata Motors, Seat Tires, etc. He is a certified trainer for Google Analytics and has offered training to more than 10 international organizations like LinkedIn, Air Liquide, Condé Nast, and Biorad. His area of research and teaching is along with the interface of business analytics and decision sciences for new business ventures through gamification. So here onwards, the platform is yours, sir.
So thank you for the warm welcome, and welcome everyone who's attending this online sort of a discussion. I would always call it a discussion because even though I am I'll be speaking more about what I have done and what you should be doing, it's more coming from my experience in general. So let's begin what we intend to do. So my intention, what I have planned in the due course is, let me just get rid of this. Fabulous. Okay. So what is usually talked about, and this is what my general profile is all about. The people usually look at my profile and they say, this is exactly what you have done over the years. I said, fabulous. This is okay to understand, but the title of my presentation, and I've slightly geared it the way which is required, which is to understand making an impact where it really matters. When I say making an impact where it really matters, most often, and I begin with this debate, which often boils down to an idea of being a scholar. So with my experience and with everybody who is listening, I still believe that everybody in the world right out is scholar. When I say scholar, I still mean that they are in the pursuit of learning, and in the pursuit of learning and the pursuit of development, most often people have transformed from a scholar to becoming a professor or an assistant professor to directorial roles and God knows whatever. But what has not really changed the way, and what I'm being seeing over the years, is there is a stark difference between what scholar is versus what scholarship is. My debate today is to help people understand the difference and improve on the scholarship rather than just being the scholar. So as a doctoral scholar, as a research scholar, you may be fabulous in terms of learning, you may be great in terms of building your research profile, but over the years and over time, as you progress in your research career and your teaching career, most often people miss out on the idea of scholarship. And I would want to, and you will see this in my presentation, that one of the important things to build your profile is focusing more on the scholarship than just being the scholar, right? So you are the elephant in the room, but you can't really ignore the fact that there are others in the room as well, and you need to have your own identity, and the identity can only be proven or only be established over time by the idea of scholarship in mind. So that's point number one to begin with. However, there's a debate which I often start my discussion with, which is the idea of research for impact. Most often in academia, people believe that research is often measured by the amount of publications you have, which is one proxy of research, which is fabulous. But there are others. I mean, if you look at the world has two great. I mean, I've just given two examples to highlight here. Both the people on the right, who you can see, and most of the people whom you might know or you might not know them, are the people who have really done great impact without an official degree in mind, right? So both Arunachalam and Mansukh are people who have made innovations come live. So Mansukh is, for example, the reason why we have Mitti Cool as an innovation in the world, and Arunachalam is the reason why we have affordable sanitary pads in the world. Now, they were trying to solve some really real world problems, right? And if you look at the kind of impact they have created, I think that's humongous. So while there are measures which go beyond the Google Scholar and PubMed, you should keep them in mind as well. Apart from the fact that most of the time our colleges, our institutions, we ourselves are so much fancied by the idea of making a Google Scholar look fancy, or for that matter, your Publons site look fancy. We'll talk about that as well. That's how my session is geared, by the way. However, I'm again saying you cannot miss out on the idea of the impact which research can bring. right? And let the world talk about your impact. You should be focusing more on the impact rather than the matrices which lead you to the impact. There are some matrices you may want to work on, and I'll talk about it. How can you improve those matrices in case you have a different target audience in mind? However, let's begin. Then we have this. This is the picture perfect right now to be talked about. So the three people on the left: Abhijit Banerjee, Esther Duflo, and Michael Kremer, people who won the Nobel Prize. If you start looking at their Publon IDs, or for that matter the Google Scholar IDs, you would not see as much matrices as what I will be talking about. Yet they won the award. So the reason why I have put in this picture and I've asked the question to the audience is that, are there awards and do they really matter? You should be concerned about certain awards. It all depends on what award are you looking at. Are you celebrating your 1,000 citations? Are you celebrating your multiples of 1,000 citations, if I would want to say that? Or are you celebrating something which can be as great as a Nobel Prize, for which the matrices are different? My only idea to which I'm trying to present in the room is that your matrices would be different and everybody will have a different matrices. My idea in the next 1 hour or so is trying to decode the matrices as much as possible, and then leave the room with an open discussion saying that you can decide what matrices you may want to pick up and how do you want to sort of excel in that matrix. I'm again saying, so both the examples, research for impact and research, and so that was a non-academic impact which people have created. This is an academic impact what people have created with exactly different timelines and different matrices, by the way, in mind. So I'm again saying, let's keep both the benchmarks in mind in the next 1 hour, so that we keep our mind open to decide which way are we trying to go down the line. Right. Let's look at what impact is generally perceived as, right, and how people usually look at. This is one such matrix which people talk about. They look at your citations count. It's fabulous. You should improve your citations count. The word organic is often missed out, and I'll talk about this in my next slide or so, for that matter. And then comes other indices like your H index, your citations per index, your alt metrics, your citation velocity. It leads to also how many downloads does it have, how many collaborations do you have, how many grant fundings have you received, how many field weighted citations impact have you received. More often, when people often celebrate these awards, I often have a question in mind, and this is where I often begin my first level of inquiry, which is where the scholar versus the scholarship debate begins. When I'm sure you have these in mind, and you have seen these things mostly on Google Scholar and similar platforms. I'll come to specific platforms also in due course. But when you spend some time in seeing this, a question which keeps bothering me, and it should bother you as well, is what leads to a citation, by the way. So let's take a hypothetical example to begin with in the class, and this is a discussion forum which I would want to say. In the discussion forum, you may want to say that I have received 50 citations for a paper. Let's assume that paper is published in one of the journals which you think is of great quality. A question which should be bothering you is, on what account have I received 50 citations? Why have I got 50 citations? Right. So none of the matrices which the world is right now worried about does not talk about why. Right. So if I've got 50 citations, I should be more concerned and bothered to know, and which is an important aspect to understand my impact, is I don't know why are people citing my work. Are they criticizing my work? Are they appreciating my work? Are they just being neutral towards my work? Are they saying that my work is redundant? Do they think that my work is not up to the mark? I don't know. It's as good as saying that Abhishek is a leader, which is a neutral statement. And then Abhishek is a good leader, which is a positive statement. And Abhishek is a negative leader, which is a negative statement. In all the three situations, I would get 3 citations, by the way. So whatever people are talking about right now is more citation centric, for that matter, and for that matter even alt metric centric, which talks about the whole idea that how much times or how many times is social media talking about your research. But my context is still missing. The context of your impact is still missing, which is why most of the matrices don't work or is not perceived the right way, to be honest. It's a difficult choice to be looked at, and most people and most researchers and most scholars, to be more precise, they have no idea, and they do not spend too much time in understanding why are people citing my work, or why are people referring to my work, which is by the way, the most important part to begin understanding impact. Because if I don't know why are people looking at my work, it would be difficult for me to probably improve or not improve on certain aspects. It's as good as you are playing a cricket match on the field and somebody tells you that, okay, this is not a good way to play a shot. Next time you are into a situation, don't do this. But again, once the paper is published, it is rarely a situation that people will start coming to you and say this is not right. Only citations would be a reflection of things, and those two are not complete. So that's my first point to begin with. How and why you should be worried about, and this is how is it usually done, and how are these platforms which have become famous over time, and there are multiple such platforms. And by the way, people are now creating their own platforms and their own algorithms to rank people about the research. But research was never about rankings. Research was always about impact, always. So I still defy to understand the whole idea that why are people celebrating that we are the best researcher and we are all this and we are all that. I'm still saying that, is it because of the impact you have created? If yes, what was the definition of the impact? We'll try to cover some of those given the time limitations in our mind. But let's look at the most common and the most popular idea which people do, which is on Google Scholar. So most of your search and research sort of starts here, right? Sadly saying, the situation in the country and in the world, people often spend more time in seeing what others are doing rather than improving their own profile. But let's look at what do's are, right? And what do you want to do if you are on Google Scholar? How do you want to improve your Google Scholar, right? Number one, and as most people say, let's update the Google Scholar page. And when it comes to updation, I always believe that you should be, if you are using your official email address, do validate that. It gives you more power at times, right? People believe and slightly take you more seriously about the fact that you come from an institution and you are okay to give recognition to the institution as well. So that's point number one. Until unless you are using your personal Gmail or Yahoo account to maintain your Google Scholar page, that's a different ball game altogether. But if that's not the case, then you may want to maintain and update that. When I say update, more people, and I have seen this multiple times, that people often have publications added by Google Scholar because of similar names. So let's hypothetically pick up a name called Yukti Sharma. Now, if I randomly pick up a name called Yukti Sharma, there could be multiple such authors in the world with the same name of Yukti Sharma. Now, the concern what Google Scholar often has is they often merge the publications by the same scholar or by different scholars under the same name. So one fine day you may open up and you realize that there is a biochemistry article which has been added to your Google Scholar profile. It's your job to remove it. On other occasions, you would find the Google Scholar has not picked up your name for some reason and has not picked up your profile for some reason. It's your responsibility to go and then update your Google Scholar. So most often people have a common complaint, and it's common complaint in terms of about the fact that Google is not automatically updating the volume number, issue number, page number, other details of my paper. It's your job. Google Scholar is an automated platform. It's a free service which Google offers to you. They do not promise that they will update your profile as and when your profile gets updated. So it's important for you to do that. It's as good as you update your resumes too often. You should be updating your Google Scholar profile too much. Number one. Number two is the keywords, which are very important, right? Most people, they have very static way of defining their research. Over time, and I'm sure, I'm slightly certain about the fact that as you grow in your research journey, your keywords or the words which define your research broadly would change. So when I started my research, I was earlier doing research in a different area. Now I'm into a different area. Maybe after 5 years, I would change my area, or maybe after 3 years, I'll change my area. For all simple reasons, because research is evolving. Why are your keywords not evolving? So if you have a bunch of keywords, it will help authors or potential researchers find you, or for that matter, find your research. This is one of the common things I often do, and I sort of, and therefore that's my do's part of it. If I'm trying to find somebody who is working in my area on Google Scholar, I would definitely find people based on a keyword. So if I'm researching on gamification for simple reasons, I would want to know that how many people have a similar interest with the word gamification as their potential research area, only because people have updated their keywords. And I would request this, that do not have fancy keywords, so that, or do not have very too niche keywords to begin with, because that will limit people to find you. So you may be working on bigger technologies, you may be working on bigger portfolios like maybe strategy, marketing, social sciences, whatever. Try to pick up a broad keyword as well, and then also pick up some narrow keywords. But I'm not saying that you should always have broad keywords and always have narrow keywords. It should be a mix of the two as you go along. The third point which I mentioned is who cites you and whom do you cite. Who cites you is a very simple reflection. Most people are happy seeing how many people have cited my work. I've got 100 citations here and 200 citations there and 20 citations there. And H index is all about that. But how many of you do spend time in finding out that because you have written a paper and you have cited somebody, how many times have you gone back to their profile and seen that fabulous, this guy has also done some more research in the same area? And most people, by the way, in the world, they usually have a defined area and defined keywords which define their sort of broad area of research. The reason why you should be spending more time in finding out whom have you cited, because it helps you improve the keywords. Next time, if somebody cites my work, I know that, or there's a higher chance that a common co-author might be found out. And this is something which often people don't realize, but it's a function of time. Let's look at the next. And therefore, when I say co-authors, and that's exactly what my next point is, that when you look at your set of co-authors, it is important for you to also spend time in picking up who your co-authors would be. And when I say who your co-authors would be, it does not mean that they need to be impactful in the world, but they need to be very clear in terms of certain consistency. You should ideally pick up people whom you are consistently working with, because it helps you get onto their pages, and it is important for you to cite them onto your pages when you are adding co-authors on Google Scholar. It really is useful. Because you have picked up the right keywords, you're also empowered to enable alerts in case somebody publishes paper in a particular area. Or if I'm following a particular author, I can enable alerts on Google Scholar, and there is a simple mechanism to do that. You can find it out to enable alerts. So for example, if I'm following a researcher XYZ working in Finland, okay, for me that is Juho Hamari, for example, in gamification. Now Juho Hamari is a known name, and I usually love to follow his work about what he does and how does he publish and so on and so forth. Again, this is he's my idol of research. So I've just enabled alert that whenever there's a paper published by him, there should be a small email in my inbox saying that there is a new paper added to his Google Scholar profile. Do you want to go and read that? Fabulous. I do spend time in reading the work, because I know that he has defined his keywords very well, and I've also defined my keywords very well. So sort of it's a social networking effect I often want to use, and in picking up the alerts which I want to see. That's the next point. Then it comes to promotion of your page and celebrating papers and not citations, right? I'm again saying, for me, I am not and this is completely my own point of view in the room, that I'm not a very fancy person in terms of citation, because I'm again saying, for me, context is still something which is missing. So until and unless I really know on what context or on what pretext somebody has cited my work, I would not be really happy in celebrating my citations too much. Rather, I would be celebrating my research, wherein I would be celebrating my the research questions which I have tried to post, and I have tried to give a glimpse of what my research was all about, and so on and so forth. You may also want to add your Google Scholar page to your signature, in case you may want to promote your research to people whom you are sending emails, receiving emails, and communicating. That's also another way of promoting your Google Scholar page, so that people get to know what are you working upon. And last but not the least, and I've been slightly inclined to the whole idea of open access, because more often in the world, people do not have an access to the papers you have published. They only have an access to maybe a brief summary, which is abstract of the work. But if you publish a paper in an open access journal, it will have a higher readership. Okay, there's no guarantee that it will be cited for all simple reasons, but because it is a higher readership or higher viewership, as what we people say, there's a chance of it becoming popular. And popularity is all about creating an impact at a level which is beyond citations, to be honest, right? If I read somebody's work, I may not be always citing it, right? But I still remember a lot of things. It's as good as reading a good novel or reading a good thought, but I would not always want to cite the book and cite the author always, but the thought remains with me. But because it was open access, it was powerful. Then it comes to the whole idea of what not to be done, and that's the first point. And I have slightly been more vocal when I say this: don't manipulate citations. So what most people do is they often cite their own work, or they cite some people's work while they're reviewing papers and stuff like this. Not a good idea. Most prestigious organizations, including Scopus, Web of Science, others, they have smarter algorithms to understand how citations are manipulated, and they have been working very closely to not encourage authors, for that matter, who manipulate citations. So whatever the number is, I'm again saying you should not be completely a fan of citations. I'm saying you should follow citations, you should do that, but you should not completely be blinded by the idea of getting more citations, right? That's number one. Number two is don't work on similar titles and themes too much, because you will run out of ideas too much. You should have a decent enough portfolio. It's as good as understanding that don't put all the eggs in one basket. You should have a fair enough idea of 2 or 3 related areas which could be aligned, but it should not have similar titles. It should not have broadly similar themes. You should diversify slightly so that your keywords would help you get a bit of diversity. Now, point number one. And point number two, you really don't know how will you run short of ideas, because globally people are working on the same theme. So if you have a diversity in your, I'm not saying too much of diversity, if you may want, again, completely your choice, you may have a complete diverse portfolio, but working too much on the same area with the same titles or similar titles is not a good idea, which is often translating to a whole idea of writing a conference paper, which is often then converted into something like a research paper. Avoid that. In case you're submitting a paper to a conference, which is maybe indexed in a Scopus listed journal or Scopus listed proceedings, you should change your title while submitting the same paper with a different title or an altered title, to be honest. That helps you give a better mileage in general. And then in case you have duplicate accounts, please delete them. Right? Don't ignore your copyrights and licensing. That's very important. Ethics is something which I will not spend too much time on, because people are really interested in finding what's wrong. So try to avoid that. And I've already mentioned what journals and conferences are all about. So don't duplicate papers there. That's something very critical for a Google Scholar. A lot of times, if Google Scholar shows or finds out a duplicate paper, it will showcase a star mark against the citation, which simply means that there are 2 papers which are almost of the same content, and you would have got multiple citations for both of them, but they will eventually choose one over the 2, and they will strike off the next one. Again, so why to reach a situation which will decrease your overall profiling? That should not be encouraged in general. Let's look at the second one, which is again a most common thing, which is your research ID and Publons. Most people are also here. They also want to improve this. I've given a snapshot of what should be done. So in the process of your development of your Publons ID, I've given a snapshot which has 3 things in mind. The first thing on the left hand shows the number of papers which people review. So a glimpse of what I have done. I have till date reviewed 470 odd papers for 328 manuscripts, right? So if I look at my career record, I think my first review invitation came sometime in 2013. So in the last 10 years, I have reviewed 328 manuscripts, of which my graph, which I will show you in the next slide, has gone up in the last 2 to 4 years, 6 years, to be honest. And this is a very important part of why Web of Science is so important and why you should be reviewing too much papers. A question which might be bothering you, and it used to bother me as well, which was that how will I tell that I am available for a review, right? And I will answer the question in due course. But It's important for you because, and I will show you a glimpse of how the editorial portal looks like, because more often when you submit a paper to a journal, you don't know what the journal is processing. So for me, it is important to discuss that in the room, because it helps you build your profile. Why will an editor choose you? It's not because of the papers you have published. It is also a function of other factors, and I will show you that. But my first request, and my sort of a broader request to the audience who is listening, is do spend time in reviewing a lot of papers, right? If time permits, if you have to spend some time in a day, in a week, in a month, do spend time for this as well. Everybody, and I'm sadly saying this on a forum which I should not be saying that, but there are sadly people who do not come to me with an idea that I have reviewed a paper, can you check if the review is right? On the contrary, there are other people who are absolutely, I mean, encouraged for that matter at every level that they should be publishing papers. But I'm saying that your reviewing of papers is a net practice, which is a function of how well you will write tomorrow, which eventually leads to your to your higher impact which you are trying to create. But it all begins here, right? This is what you may want to do then. So as you are on the same page, you may want to spend some time in adding. So this is just a glimpse of the 1210. So if you look at on the right hand side, it has 1210 such pages, and this is just a glimpse of half of the page. There are 36,296 such entries which help you choose your keywords very well, right? When somebody picks or finds you, they will find you, and if they're finding you, by the way, on Publons or by the way on Web of Science, they will choose such keywords. So you should not be, and if you have not added keywords to your Publons profile, or for that matter the Web of Science profile, then people will not be able to find you, irrespective of the fact that you have done great work. So right from an engineering to a biochemical, or from a management to a humanities, there are all such keywords available. Feel free to choose your keywords very well. Then comes an important aspect, and this is something which I often say. So when I look at third category, I'm again saying for the first one, peer review, I've already given you a glimpse. Grant reviews, in case I've missed that, in case you have if you have won any grants, and if you have reviewed any submissions for grants, it will be also added there. Most of them are grants by DST or these government or non-government organizations which are linked with Web of Science. However, in your peer review interest, which is also a glimpse of what you are publishing over time. So this should be a mix of the two. A, what you publish should have keywords, and then B, what you intend to sort of review should have keywords. These should have slightly an overlap between the two. If that happens, it is a higher chance that people will take your work seriously. And I'll tell you how does that happen, because it eventually leads to your impact. Let's look at the next slide, and this is slightly more important. If I look at, and this is just a glimpse of what I have done, because I have only access to my profile, right? So if I look at the left hand side top matrix, which is the peer review matrix, right? Now, if I look at how many paper have I reviewed in the last 12 months, in last 1 year, I have reviewed 101 papers, right? If I look at the rightmost matrix, which simply says peer review to publication ratio, which is 4.1 to 1, which is as good as for every time I publish one paper, I am reviewing 4 papers for journals. This number is as great as important, because when you submit a paper to a journal, and when you eventually somebody wants to refer to your profile, by the way, the editor does scan your profile if required to find out how the author is and what area of work he or she has done, and so on and so forth. It also has a glimpse of how many papers have you reviewed. This number is a very important number to show, and by the way, you can't fudge the number. If you have submitted a review, it will, and if you have accepted the idea of adding that to your profile, it will be adding that to your profile. Look at how the median is. The median is 0.3:1. So on an average, not on an average, on a median scale, people only review 1/3 of the papers what they publish. For me, it is important, and it is very, very important that I should be reviewing more papers than I publish, because it helps me build my profile. One of the things which my profile has not been talking about, and I'll be spending more time upon, is that I have won back-to-back 3 best reviewer awards from journals in 3 consecutive years. One of the prime reasons my profile goes up and people should be looking at that profile, not my profile, in general, anybody's profile, because they do review a lot of papers. Okay, so that's my the median number of papers people have reviewed is 4. I'm standing at 470. I'm in the top 1 percentile of the world. Again, not a point to be boasted in the room, but my point which I'm trying to make is requesting everyone, please review papers, right? If you don't get a good review, your paper will be, it's as good as that. If you don't get a good reviewer for your paper will not be improved, and if your paper is not improved, your overall impact is drilled down. So for the larger community, it is important that you should be reviewing papers. This is just a glimpse of what I've been doing in the last so many years, the last 10 years sort of history. So if you look at the early career days of my life, when I was learning research and I was trying to practice research, I used to do one review maybe a month or so, and that was it. That's all about what I have done. And if you look at what I have done, I finished my second PhD somewhere around 2020, and since then I think I have not looked back. I've at times reviewed more than 22 papers in a month. This is a monthly data, by the way. So this is what I have been doing. So every month on an average, I spend close to 10, 12 papers, 8, 10 papers per month. I spend this much amount of time just to review papers. This helps me boost my profile in general. And I'm again saying, I'm only saying this because I'm not saying I'm the best, but I'm only saying that for anybody, this is an important data point, because in my subsequent slides, you'll realize that the journal is spending time in seeing this. It's very important, because only then they are interested in seeing how much work are you doing. Let's look at Scopus, and this is something which people often are really again worried about, right? They look at, and I give you a glimpse of what people do often, right? So there are 3 forms of reviewers again to begin with. First is people who complete their reviews. So if you look at the paper, and this is just a glimpse of the paper I'm showing you, and again random names, to be honest, this is an old data, by the way, but if you look at, some of them have completed the reviews for a paper. Good job. Then there are people who have agreed to review and still not submitted the review. So I keep chasing them as an example that they should submit a review. Okay, and they often submit reviews on time. And then there are people who decline. Okay, sometimes they give me a reason. More often they don't give me a reason, right? And this is a matter of concern for me, right? Again, these are people who have an interest, who have shown interest, by the way. Some of them are voluntary interest, some of them are involuntary interest to review papers, but they have somehow not been able to review papers. And this goes on their profile. I'll show you what happens on the profile and how does it reflect on their overall performance in due course of time. And then there are more examples like this. So some of them decline, others don't even bother to say no to me, which is fine. It is absolutely fine in showing to what the world is, right? But that's okay. That's absolutely fine. What goes behind the journal is something like this. When I'm finding a reviewer, and by the way, this also is for your paper. So think about, you submitted a paper. You think that paper will help me improve my profile. Good job, right? As an editor, I'm trying to find a reviewer for you. I would have, if you look at on the left hand side, this is just a glimpse of what editor looks like, or editor has in control. They have something called a system recommendation. They have a keyword search. They have an author search. They have interested reviewers, and they have journal reviewers, board members, ... I've been stressing this point on the keyword search right in the first beginning. When I put something for my keyword, and this goes for my Scopus as well, if I have not maintained my author profile, if I have not maintained my keyword very well, I would never be found out by any editor, and they will never get to know if somebody like me, for example, or anybody for that matter, is even working closer to what I am working, and will they or should they even consider my paper or not, or should they even look at a right reviewer or not. That's number one. Let's look at, when I look at system recommendations, what does it do? And this is where your matrices would matter. So first filter, which you see on the left hand side, which is called filter on H index. If I further drill it down, this is how an H index of searching usually looks like. I can set filter. So your H index is a function of how people find you. I'm not saying you should be improving on H index. I'm only telling what people would look at. So what you want to show to the world is one part, but what the world is actually looking at, what the journals is looking at, what the editor is looking at, is filtering based on an H index, which could be as simple as this. Then comes filtering on the basis of expertise, right, which is as good as this. So which is your subject matter areas, which I was mentioning, a broad area, broad keyword, and then a specific keyword, right? So if I'm searching something, if I want to search something for industry 4.0, I have 84 such people who have listed that as their keyword. Then I have 64 people in my pool which have mentioned systematic literature review as their keyword. Then supply chain, then internet of things, then dot 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 dot. Same goes on the left hand side, which is subject matter expert. Depending on which journal am I reviewing the paper, it is important for me to find an expert in that area. So whichever area you are working on, your broader keywords to start from that broad area, maybe marketing, then it could be affiliate marketing, that could be branding, that could be consumer branding, I don't know. Again, it's just an example in the room, but that's exactly what your expertise should look like. So right from your scholar profile to your Scopus profile to your Publons profile, things should be almost similar. You should not deviate too much. These platforms are interlinked. Everything is interlinked, right? So a journal, if it is listed on Web of Science, there's a higher chance that would also be listed on Scopus. So these platforms invariably start talking to each other, and that's where the globalization is happening. So you need to understand this too much. Then happens something called connections, and this is an interesting part, which helps me understand that how many, if I'm selecting somebody, how many people are available in terms of who have reviewed papers for this journal, who have been reviewers for any journal in Elsevier, who have published the papers in journals, cited them, and so on and so forth, from the same country, different institutions, everything. So I get a glimpse, by the way, of all of these things. This is why your scholar profile would be important. If your scholar was perfect, if your Scopus was perfect, if your Publons was perfect, it would help people find you better, and obviously your paper gets a right reviewer. To be honest, one of the common concerns which the academia is right now facing is we don't get reviewers, right? And we don't get the right reviewers. They give you they ask you a question which you think is non-relevant because people have not updated their profile. How will an editor find you? It's not their job to go and read each and every paper of yours, right? So it eventually will come and hit you in the long run. And then your uh, review history, right? It's the last point. Filter on review history. How much papers have you reviewed? It's such an important criteria for a system to recommend this. And I'm again saying this is an insider information of what the journals look like. This is just one platform. You may look at other platforms, almost similar kind of analytics being used to find people. Okay, if I randomly pick up somebody, and this is just an example, this is an example of how you will build a profile. When you, and this is just an example, I'm not written the name of the person, but if you look at the person, if you start realizing, you will realize that this is the information. So candidate's information is mentioned. It gives you a glimpse of when they did sign up for a review. Okay, why do you want to review for a journal? And this is why your interested reviewers are important. When you write something, it shows on your author keywords. It also shows on your Scopus area keywords, which is what you need to add to your profile. So what's important, and I'm again saying, if had I shown you what to add and where to add, you would always ask me why to add, and this is the reason why you should be adding. Because as at the editorial team, you would see what is shown to the editors and what is shown to the reviewers. They get a great glimpse of what is your profile all about. So your profile really matters because it gives you a larger impact about how great are you doing your research, right? It also shows a glimpse of the journey of how many papers you are currently reviewing, if you already reviewed, how many of them are completed, the name of the journal, everything as a backup history. So this is the data which you might not be having access to. Okay, but as the other part, I'm again saying, if you were focused more on what you are doing, you would get to see the impact at a later stage. But this is exactly where the impact is critical, because you're talking about academic impact at the moment. You may want to look at other impacts as well, but for an academic impact, this is critical. let's look at, and this is my last section of the debate, not the last few slides, but last section. Let's look at what you should do now as the way to forward. And I will give you examples of two different ideologies: the ideology of a film and the ideology of a sport. And the reason why you should be worried with both of them, because if I look at Oscars and Olympics, they represent excellence in due course of time, right? The reason why I am trying to now gear my discussion points around this and why your profile is so much important, because your celebrities are here, right? The celebrities are absolutely in the film industry and so-called in the sports industry. Beyond that, we don't celebrate academia too much, right? We don't call up to a researcher and say, wow, I have a fan following. And by the way, people would love to do a lot of fan following, and that's the reason why we have TikToks in the world. And to be honest, right, because we still need attention. Research does not get you attention, but if I would be interested to learn from films and games or sports for that matter, and try to become the so-called impactful researcher or so-called a popular researcher in due course of time, what are my takeaways? So we call it an inside out story always, right? And again, trying to decode what we want to learn from these two worlds into academia. My first thing is references. When I say references, please remember your profile should be updated. When I say references, people are interested to see what people want to read. So if you are writing a paper, if you are publishing a paper, you should be very clear with the idea that if the paper is updated in all 3 or 4 portals or not. If you have a ResearchGate, it should be uploaded on ResearchGate as well, right? It's important for people to know that you are updating something. And if you are research centric and you are really interested for the world to know about your research, it is also important, by the way, when I say references, and you will see this in one of my points, it is also important for you to cite and tag the right people if required, right? Sometimes you may want to tag the journal, sometimes you want to tag the organization, sometimes you may want to tag a community whom you definitely want people to read. For example, on LinkedIn, there are multiple communities which people definitely make a post for a whole idea that I want this message to be broadcasted to a certain set of people where the impact really matters, right? So point number 1 is always this. Point number 2 is decide your role very well. And when you decide your role very well, that simply means that you should be very clear with the idea that what your impact would look like. Is your impact more on indices which you have discussed, or is your impact on a different index altogether? You may decide your role completely, right? By the way, in all the ways, you can still contribute to the impact. You can still contribute to an excellent research profile. I have known a lot of people in the world, and there are multiple measures which and for example, I was talking about the Emeralds Award. So Emerald does give an award to the reviewers for their contribution. It's a non-monetary award, and I think monetization should be kept away from the art of reviewing a paper. But that's the whole idea. It gives you outstanding contribution as a paper, it gives you outstanding reviewer as a reward. Both of them are important for your profile. So decide your role very well. Even though you are not publishing as frequent, you can still review as frequent as possible, so your role becomes stronger. Next time you submit a paper, next time your paper goes online, people will definitely want to read the paper. The editor would understand that you do put in efforts. It sometimes comes to your benefit in the long run. Again, no guarantees, but this is how things are. Your appealing story is very important, which is as good as your post. So if you are maintaining your profile, your how you define yourself, there is a small way in which these platforms ask you a description about yourself. Please do write that. Please write simply yet effectively about what do you want, what are you doing. People often search you based on this. Even on a Google Scholar, please write clearly about what you are. Even on a Scopus profile or on a Publons ID, mention what are you good at. That's very, very critical. Number 1. Number 2, and this is something which is off the discussion point, but I often write what's so new about your research, which is often reflected by the hashtags these days, right? So your hashtags help you improve that people should be reading your research. Okay, it is also important for you to let the people know that people should sort of cite my research because of this reason. And the reason is all what you want to tell the world. You just can't write and say, this is my paper, go and read it. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. So more often you need to spend time when you talk to students, when you talk to your faculty colleagues about your paper, right? We often talk about everything else apart from your paper. We still think we are insecure about talking about it, but you should talk about your research. It helps you grow better and your profile gets improved. You will realize this over time. It's a function of time. I'm again saying your matrix is not a function of your hard work only. It's a function of your time. It's a function of a social connect as well. So you may be focusing on that as well. I mentioned this, who are your authors. Please pick your authors very well. You promote your authors will definitely promote you. It's a win-win for all of them, right? If you get a citation, and if that is how you measure your impact, citation is only a function of your impact. But because of you, there are 4 more authors in your team, example, and all of them get that same citation. So it is important for you at times to pick your right authors, because if you don't promote, they might promote, right? More often I have seen a lot of people who do great work, but they do not get too much of citations, they do not get too much of attention, because they have not really gone to the right forums and have told about their research. So that's why your open access was such an important aspect. You would want to say to the world that my research is absolutely available online if you want to go and read it, or a copy of it is probably available on other platforms, maybe onto your own ResearchGate profile, or maybe a web page you are trying to maintain. People do that. You may also want to do that if required. Trailers are free to watch. Please focus on your abstract. A lot of people do not realize, and this is again a silent feature, but they write abstract in the most hasty manner possible. But your profile is all because your abstracts are free to watch or free to read in this case, right? People will always read your abstract and say, great, I think the work looks interesting, maybe I would want to read the paper more. If they will not read the paper, they will not do citations, they will not be impressed or not impressed by your work, and so on and so forth. But your abstract should give you a good glimpse of what your paper should look like. Spend the most time on your abstract. You'll realize that over time, you will not realize it's because of the abstract, but abstract plays an important role in making you look nice in the long run. Decide your journals very well. Don't and this is also an important aspect, and I've been telling this to people, that you, even though you're writing 2 papers a year, maybe 2 papers in 2 years, doesn't matter, but please pick up the journals which you think are the most relevant journals for your choice. It could be relevancy, which is very important, and B, because you are looking at the keywords at the end of the day, your keywords are a function of the journals which you are publishing in. You can't publish, or you may not want to publish a finance article in a marketing journal. That is highest degree of mismatch. You may have concepts, definitely you may want to pick up, but try to pick up the best journal possible, which is why I would be sort of nudging you into the corner. I also understand that we come from a different school of thought, and we believe that because we are into an organization which focuses more on a Scopus level paper, or a paper for that matter, even in a year, you just can't publish anywhere. If you are interested in building your profile in due course of time, or if you just are publishing for the heck of publishing, feel free to do that. It's completely up to you. I'm nobody to sort of guide you on that. And this is a critical point, which is, and I've been telling this, reading the reviewers and editors. I've tried to show you a glimpse of what an editorial portal looks like. Just a glimpse, we have limited time, but that's important. I, as an editor, or I, as an associate editor of a lot of journals, spend time in seeing the profile of the author very well before I decide about a lot of things, about who the reviewers could be, because I can't assign a reviewer who is close to a author, and I don't want to look at and you can't write any keyword of your choice. So you write a keyword on your paper, and I believe that this paper has nothing to do with this. How will I find a reviewer for you? How will I find a reviewer which is aligned to your work if you have not defined your keywords very well, if you have not defined how much work have you done in the paper, and so on and so forth.
Hello. Hello. Dr. Behel, can you hear me? We've suddenly lost your. I think there might be some issue with his internet. Is everyone else able to hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear
Okay.
you.
So I think it's his internet. Just give him a few minutes. He might come back. Oh. He's saying that he's muted for some reason. Yeah.
Okay.
All okay now.
I was unmuted for a minute and I was not able to speak. Okay, well, let's go back.
Okay.
Okay, so as I keep yourself updated, please ask the right questions about what you want to measure the impact with. That's really important for you. Point number one. Reviewing papers regularly is very, very critical. You can't miss out on this. It's sort of a non-negotiable thing when you look at your impact. You will realize this, that the editors will start sort of liking your work, or your overall citations will grow, which is a function of how much papers you review and in due course of time. One important thing, and I've been, again, when I say this, and I will pause here for a minute to make people realize that while you are reviewing papers continuously, you should also spend time in watching the profile of others, right? So that is very, very critical. So if I follow somebody, how many of you have spent time in watching or looking at the profile of your co-authors? That's number one. Because I often want to see that, okay, if this is what my profile looks like, what is my sort of ideal profile looks like. So I have been following people in my academia or in my academic journey whose profile is fabulous, and I sort of learn from what and how do they do. More often when I go to editorial meets and if I reach out to people, they often ask me this question, and I've been trying to tell them that it is important for me to see whom am I following. If I'm following a particular editor, if I'm following a particular author, if I'm following a particular journal, I would be very clear about what do they want. If my profile is not as per what do they want, then it is a difficult choice for me to maintain something which the world is not really interested in. Be critical to yourself. Be open to change. Every 3 to 6 months, ideally, you should revisit your profile to see if everything is back on check or not. Let people criticize if required. You should have an open profile to people. People should be able to see your profile, and you should keep updating that if possible. I'm again saying, most people, they have standard keywords over time. They don't change it too much, or even though their research interests have changed. And I'm again saying, even though you're not publishing, for the purest reason of somebody trying to find you, please be critical. And so the fact that people are suggesting something and you are okay to understand what they're suggesting in terms of changes. That's number point. Your net practice is very important, and I'm again saying your behind the scenes is very critical. So it's as good as not always you'll be publishing papers, but you may have a frequent update on a social media platform, which helps you get more work being looked at. So, for example, the altmetric scores is a very critical score, which is as good as how many people are talking about your research on a social media platform. Except you should not be talking too much about your research, but because I have talked about my research in multiple platforms, you may want to encourage people, if required, only if it is required, that they may cite your work and cite your research in general, or for that matter, use your research. One good way people, and I've been telling this to people, is try to make short videos out of it. Right? Make a 30-second video. The world is on short videos. The world is right now on TikToks, right? They are happy watching a 30-second video or a 2-minute long video. Make a 2-minute long video and let people see what you have done. It may be a small question you may want to ask, and you may want to leave the audience with that question, saying that if you really want to see an answer, read my paper, or refer to my paper, and so on and so forth. But that's something which is my net practice. That is important for me to to build what my research looks like. If your paper is upcoming, you may also want to do the same thing, saying that you may want to ask a question, leave the audience with that question, saying that the answer may be or will be given in the next couple of months. Stay tuned on this channel or stay tuned on my research. That's equal amount of impact, because you're giving a global audience a chance that they may want to look at what my research looks like, right? Last but not the least, lights, camera, action. Please go out there and make a change. And that's my only request to the world. I do not want people to think that just because I'm not doing research, my profile should not look great, right? Even though you publish, and by the way, just for your everybody's reference, when I was talking about the Nobel laureates, John Nash published one paper because of which he was awarded the Nobel Prize, right? So you really don't know what that paper would be and what that research is all about. But it is important for him, and it was important for you also, to know the right people and tell them that this is my research. You have no idea, and I'm honestly saying, do not undersell your research with the fact that because I published just a paper, I don't know how much impact will it create. But you really don't know who is reading your paper and what impact can it create to the world. So please, therefore I always say lights, camera, action. It's always the world is waiting for you to talk the right thing. It is important for you to sell it across to the audience in a way which they would understand. And therefore I was suggesting that you may have a 2-minute long videos or 30-second long video just for your research to be spoken about the way you may want to speak, right? So that's it from my side. I have done talking about what I wanted to talk. The floor is open for questions, if any. I've tried to restrict time in an hour's time or so.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bosch. There's a lot of feedback. I don't know why. Right. So there are a lot of questions here. I'm going to start with a few. The first thing is that mostly authors cite their own work in their articles. What do you think, just for the sake of increasing numbers of citations?
Okay, so Scopus, by the way, has a very fabulous way of looking at this. If you cite your own papers, by the way, for all great awards and whatever awards they give you by the end of the day, they exclude papers if you have self-cited it. So if I have a paper and if I've mentioned 5 of my papers, even though they are relevant for all simple reasons, right? They would just not include those papers while my citation count is being shown on Scopus. That's very important. So I'm not saying that you should not do that, but keep in mind that Scopus or Web of Science is not accounting for it for all simple reasons. Okay, so I completely encourage you to cite your work if required. Google Scholar will give you due credit for it. It will give you citation count increase. And for all the people who are listening to this, you may actually want to check your Google Scholar citation would be a higher number, always a higher number than that of your Scopus citations. Scopus citations will exclude a lot of these sort of self citations, other citations. A true citation index, if you want to really capture your own journey, is your Scopus citation journey or a Web of Science citation journey. That accounts for how much people have cited your work and how relevant is it in a Scopus level journals or a Web of Science level journals, to be honest. And that's where the benchmarks is of the world generally.
Thank you. The next question is, how can one be reviewer with journals, and can you help with this process?
Fabulous. It's a question which everybody is right now worried about. Just go to the journal and create a login ID. Okay, the moment you create a login or a account on the page, the first thing they will ask you is your research review preference. And there's a small button usually at the end of the page which says that, are you available for a review? You should say yes. If you're unavailable for a review, maybe for a couple of months, you are traveling or whatever, just say no and say, I'm unavailable for these 3 months because I understand your academic commitments, your personal commitments. But in general, if you're available, even though you are not submitting a paper, just create an account. Just create an account. And that is something which I really do. And I'm telling you, I may want to publish a journal, maybe let's assume in an AMJ, but I don't know how AMJ works. So I will create an account, secretly hoping that one fine day AMJ realizes that I have a Scopus page as well, and and Web of Science page as well, and I'm enrolled as a reviewer, right? I'm available as a reviewer. Remember one of the screens I had mentioned, interested reviewers. That interested reviewer is basically is somebody who does not have published a paper, but yet is open to review a paper in that journal. So I only need to create an account, that's all, and keep the account as such. There's a lot of times you will and because it asks you a set of 6 or 8 keywords which you are interested to review. When as an editor, if I need to find a reviewer, I will search a reviewer based on a keyword, which is authors have mentioned, which is what the title of the paper is, and so on and so forth. That will help me find you as a potential reviewer, and you are onboarded. Once you are there, you are there.
Thank you so much. The next thing is, how can I access my review statistics?
So just for Scopus or for Web of Science, just create an account. You just need to create an account, and you may want to link your account maybe to an ORCID ID, or maybe to your Publons ID, or maybe to your Google Scholar ID. I mean, for that matter, a common email address. Once you are there, it will ask you, do you want to integrate all your reviews with this, right? So if you are publishing papers with your Gmail account, with your Outlook account, or your official account, use that as a parameter to scan it and find it out. It will show you all the statistics of whatever you have done. How many papers have you published? How many papers have you reviewed? It will ask you if you have reviewed the papers, do you want to add it to your profile? Say yes. It will show all the databases of what is required. So just use maybe an ORCID account to be precise. You may want to do that, or use your official email addresses, or the email address which you use for your publications largely to create an account.
Thank you. The next question is that, can researchers pre-register as reviewers in journals for relevant areas?
Yes, always. See, let's understand the whole idea. The idea of reviewing is very different from that of publishing. Even though I do not wish to publish a paper, I do not have any scope, or I may want to publish a paper in the future, even though I've rejected myself as an author in a journal, I will be happy to look at as a reviewer. Please understand, as a reviewer, it is my job to understand the journal very, very well, right? When I review a paper, I understand what the journal usually sends the paper out for review. If my potential paper in the long run is not the same as what I'm reviewing, okay, I would never get to know if I'm thinking right about the journal or not. Okay, it's as good as understanding your school before joining it, right? You do go for a school tour, right? So let's go to school tour. So you go for a school tour, you see how the school looks like, and say, maybe this school is nice. If I ever want to probably send my child to the school, I will send my child to the school. But this is how I will scan journals in due course of time.
The next question is a bit okay. The question is that reviewing of papers contributes much more to your research profile than publications do. I mean, they are re-quoting what you had said in your presentation, that reviewing papers contributes much more than publishing, thus helping you improve your research profile. Publication is an original work based on study and research carried out for a significant period of time, say months. How can this effort, this have a lesser value than the process of reviewing a paper?
Yeah, I think you need to create a balance for this. For me, I'm trying my best to preach this, if possible, that you should have. So let's go by the old saying. The old saying says that a paper a day keeps the doctor away. For me, it's a paper a day keeps the doctor away, right? So for me, rather than an apple, just replace that with the paper. You can't write a paper every day, but you can still review a paper, right? So do read a paper. And for me, for all simple reasons, this is exactly what I've been requesting people. You should be reading one paper a day. If that is a paper by a journal as a request, nothing like it. You may be reviewing that paper for sure. But if that is not the paper, you may still want to read a paper from a potential journal and review it as if you were the reviewer. Okay, the reason why you should be reviewing, because it helps you build your profile better. Next time you're writing a paper, next time you're trying to submit a paper, you are more confident about the fact that this is exactly what a journal is looking forward to. It's as good as understanding the trend, right? But again, most complicated analytics will not tell you this trend because it is completely a self journey, right? There is no analytics which will tell you that how your mom will react if you are late to your house, right? So it's your experience over time, and you can only gain from experience. There's no shortcut to experience. Analytics is not a shortcut to experience, by the way.
Thank you,
Thank
Professor
you.
Abhishek. I also agree with you. Actually, in fact, we are learning from reviews. So that's why we are being improved. Thank you very much for that wonderful comment.
Most welcome.
The next question is that how does reviewing paper help publication? Could you please clarify a bit more? Do you does that become? I think it's a repetition of the one before. Do you want to take this, or we can move on to the next question?
Same thing almost, but if you want to spend more time on it, I'm okay. But at the same thing which we have covered in the last question.
Yeah. The next question is that can we upload the conference papers on Web of Science page?
No, we cannot. One of the common platforms that people often refer to uploading conference papers is a portal called SSRN, which stands for Social Science Research Network. Again, if you will find a lot of top scholars of the world submitting their conference papers just for the idea that this is my idea, even though it is not published in a journal. In fact, a lot of journals, I remember, I think if I'm not wrong, JBR, Journal of Business Research, has a feature while submitting a paper which says that we want to submit a copy of it on SSRN. So a lot of my papers which are even under review as the first copy is available on SSRN. The whole idea is that you are telling the world that this is sort of my patent idea, right? I have developed this paper on a particular date, and even though you plan to copy this, just give me a citation on SSRN. When the paper is published, you may obviously want to change the citation from an SSRN to maybe a JBR or a TFSC or whatever journal. But because you are still waiting for the paper to be accepted, you can't. I mean, I'm again saying one of the points I mentioned. See, you really don't know about ethics. You may be ethical, but somebody else may not be. Right? So just to protect your own paper and own rights, you may want to make a copy of it or a small photocopy of it and submit it on SSRN with your name and say, this is my paper. This is just my paper. You would see that people are, again, because an open access thing, anybody can go and read your paper. You can make it an open access, you can make it a not so open access. You may only keep the abstract, you may only keep 3 pages visible, all pages visible, your choice. Completely up to you what you want to show the world. But good platform to go is SSRN rather than Web of Science in this case.
Thank you. The next question is it beneficial to write multidisciplinary, or shall we stick to our own domain? How does writing multidisciplinary impact our career prospects?
Again, it's completely a choice you may want to make. Okay, it's as good as you would ask me a question if should I be Dr. Reddy's lab or should I be Reliance? Now, Reliance is into every business possible right now, but that does not make Reliance a bad company in the long run. It just does not. It all depends that you may start as a specialist, you may want to then diverge your area, or you may start as a journalist and become a specialist in due course of time. It's completely up to you. There is no one perfect solution that becoming a journalist in the long run or a journal researcher in every area makes you popular or not popular. You may choose your journey. You can become a specialist from a journalist. You can become start with your specialist and then become a journalist, because you would have more bandwidth as you grow as a researcher. Initially, you may have lesser bandwidth. You may want to focus maybe on limited publications. Once your profile is sort of okay, then you may want to experiment more with others, maybe.
Thank you. The next question is, what are the top platforms to update the research profile?
So what we have covered most of them. We have covered, so you should be definitely on Scopus, you should be definitely on Web of Science, you should be definitely on Scholar. You may be on ResearchGate. possible. You may be on SSRN, possibly. You may be on ORCID for sure, right? These are the common platforms which you may definitely want to explore. Every other platform would be linked to this. Your journals will be linked to this. Your other awards ceremonies are all linked to this. It will be all linked kind of a thing in general.
Wonderful. The next question is, sir, how AI generative tools, or I don't know if they wanted to write AI, generative tools are important in improving research write-up?
Why do you want to outsource things to somebody whom you don't trust? And I really don't know if they will do the right job or not. Right? You're trying to outsource, or you're trying to take a help. I'm not saying outsource is the wrong word to be used, but if you're trying to take a help from a generative AI platform, which are not the reflection of your own thoughts, I don't think that would be encouraged. I mean, as a researcher, my job is to read and write. Right? I don't want to at least outsource my writing to somebody. The joy of writing is I think something which academia helps you, and also right. You may be expressing your story the way you want to express, right? So it is absolutely okay to take help from others or these AI platforms, but honestly, I don't encourage that to be a practice in general. Journals are actually, in fact, also say the same thing. The publishing houses have actually now incorporated, when there are publishers in the room, they will be happy to answer that. There is a strict guideline which simply says that if you've written a paper using a AI platform or an LLM platform, they would just reject the paper. I mean, there could be serious implications on the author as well. In fact, as a reviewer, you can't do that. So you may want to use an AI platform or a chat GPT to make your profile look nicer. Good job. But not what goes inside your profile, right? On the outside of it, you can always make your profile look smarter and elegant, but not what goes inside it, right?
Thank you very much. Disha, sorry to interrupt you. So there are
Yeah.
two questions highlighting on top quality publications. So I would like to let you know that there are two separate sessions which cover that area. So we are not taking that.
Okay, sure. So I'll just have a quick, look through the questions that are left, if there are any on reviewing or anything else. Okay, now there's a question. It says, is there any requirement like only doctorate person can be a reviewer? Please mention some good journals to work as reviewers to begin with.
Any journal is an outlet. I'm again saying you are not judged by your degree. The book is not judged by its cover, and you are not judged by your degree, right? You may be a budding researcher, you may be an upcoming scholar. I'm again saying, remember my first slide, there's a difference between a scholar and a scholarship. Journals look for scholarship, not your scholar as an identity. So identity of a doctorate, of a PhD does not really make you or assure you to become a good reviewer, right? To make your profile, I have seen a lot of people, in fact, as a student, you can review a paper for that matter, right? Given the fact you may want to start at a lower level of journal. When I say a lower level of journal, you may want to follow certain rankings like an ABDC or an ABS or whatever. You register as a reviewer to these journals. You may want to start low and say, okay, you may want to write to the editors. I have done that. I've written to editors saying that you want to give me a chance to review a paper. Even an informal review is okay, because I'm learning. It's the process of learning in the process. My profile, I'm again saying, what you see right now, whatever all four people in the room, and their profile is not a function of what they're doing now. It's a function of what they've done over the years. So your H index, your I index, your profile index, any index you may want to talk about is a function of time and a function of experience. So which journals to begin with? I would say any journal of your choice. There is no boundary. Okay, Professor Devasri is here. He is an editor of a journal. He would never bifurcate the fact that you are a budding scholar and therefore I will not give you a chance. If your area of expertise match what his requirement is of a journal, of a paper, he will give you a chance. generally editors don't really do a background check about the fact that, and therefore I'm again saying one of the metrics which I have not shown, and I think I have missed it out, is how many words you write per review. Okay, so for example, on average, I write close to 700 words per review, which is close to 1.5 to 2 pages per review. When I began my journey, this number was very low. This number was 250 words, half a page maybe per review. Over time, I've realized that I want to express more in asking the right question as a reviewer, which helps me as my matrix. It's a matrix which you can check on Web of Science also. So if you are reviewing on Web of Science, you go to your page, it will tell you a small matrix that what is the average review size or review length of the world versus yours. It's a good point to know what your benchmarks are, and then you will improve in due course of time.
Thank you so much. I have last two questions. I'm picking this up because we've already spoken about this. They're saying that if ChatGPT is used only for paraphrasing, is that okay, or is it still problematic?
Problematic. For all journals, they usually use one of the two. If I'm not wrong, I think there are only two such platforms. A is Authenticate, okay, and B is Turnitin. Turnitin and Authenticate have an additional plugin now, which simply says that if you have used one of such platforms, it will find it out. It will flag it straight up. So, I mean, these platforms or these AI platforms are getting smarter, but the Turnitins of the world and Authenticates of the world are equally smarter. So remember that you are trying to fight a demon with a demon right now. So if AI can solve problems, AI can also find problems for you. So it will immediately flag to the editor that somebody has used a paraphrasing tool to write maybe a paragraph, maybe a couple of sentences or whatever. I think there's a tolerance limit depending on what the journals have decided. Up till a particular limit, I think maybe 1%, 2%, maybe I don't know the exact number. That is okay, but you should not. Ideally, don't take the risk. Just don't take the risk. You may paraphrase it for your own reference, maybe getting ideas about how better it could be written. That is a good idea, but don't use it for actual paper writing.
Thank you very much, Professor Abhishek. I would like to share one of my experiences with regard to AI here. So, being the editor of South Asian Journal of Marketing, we recently accepted one paper, and eventually it has gone further review just because of the reason that it was generated 35% of the content through AI. So finally it was rejected even after the acceptance. So we had to rescind the decision, reverse the decision and reject the paper. So you should not have the support from anyone else because you are the one, you are the researcher. You should do it on your own. Thank you, Professor Abhishek, for your insightful answer.
Just one last question I'm asking. It is on a publication, but it is from the side of a practitioner. They have said that today was an excellent talk. How do you enhance our impact of research for practitioners in academia who would not have a PRJ rather than have case studies or popular press articles?
Okay, I think I've mentioned this and I will try to reiterate that. Please look at, so you may want to again start your journey as a peer review in a peer review journal, but that's one side of the story. The other side of the story was going to a platform like SSRN. Now, when you go to a platform like SSRN, there are a lot of people, practitioners largely. I have seen who write papers and it could be a short paper. The good part about SSRN like platforms, this is just one of the most popular platforms I'm talking about, is that they allow you to write not in a specific format. They will not check for your APA style. They will not check for other things. They will not check for the novelty of work or whatever. So whatever you have written, you may start submitting on SSRN. The good part about SSRNet is that it also attracts citations. So globally, people who, and because it's an open access thing, you can control. Unlike a journal who will go for reviews and then it will publish and stuff like this, it will not be as much impactful in academic world, which is what your question was. In a practice world, they don't want to read too much of journals, and this is what is the situation right now in the world. Good, bad, ugly, I don't know, but this is the situation. They would want to consume data which is readily available. SSRN could be a starting point for you. You may want to write a lot of blogs to begin with. You may want to write a lot of case studies to begin with. You may want to write small caselets to begin with. You may also want to edit books and write chapters in the books to begin with. That's a good idea. I mean, Professor Devisar is right now, I mean, we are editing a book together. In a book kind of a situation, we are not expecting you to write reviews or a review-based paper and data has to be collected. It is a meaningful, thoughtful idea about a topic. And the topic, let's assume, could be metaverse. The topic could be publishing. Topic could be anything. But that's equally important because somebody can read a chapter even though they don't want to read the entire book. You can send across a chapter saying that this is my 6,000 word of wisdom. Just read this and say this is what I contributed. So there are multiple such platforms. Emerald does that, Elsevier does that, other platforms also do that. They allow people to write book chapters. Equally impactful, they get a DOI number usually, they usually get citations, they get everything in the world. You may keep a copy of it, you get a digital copy of the book, circulate it to your friends and family and whatever. So for a practitioner, this could be starting points. SSRN, number 1, book chapters, number 2, maybe your own blogs if required, number 3. Good starting points always.
Miss Sangeeta, I'm really sorry. I've unmuted you. I just saw your message.
No problem. I think there's some points I wanted to make in the past questions, but that moment is gone. I'll just add, no problem. I think the only thing I'll add to what Dr. Bell just said is that as publishers, it has always been a problem that we have been trying to solve, how to bring practitioners and academia together. And that I'll say, unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that very successfully because of the way both function. And we are hoping more platforms come. There was F1000 by Taylor and Francis, which was more focused on bringing the two together. Unfortunately, what we've seen is also that we haven't evolved to the point where we are able to sustain that platform in a manner that benefits all, but that's only a matter of time. So we as publishers are also working towards bringing the two together. Again, like Dr. Behel said, the reading habits, the way you consume that knowledge is very, very different. And hopefully we'll find a way through in the coming years. Thank you.
We've just got one more question. I'm so sorry. If you can just take it. We still have time. The question is case studies are not accepted by all journals. Please suggest the journals that are open to case studies and what is a case report?
I think Sangeeta can answer probably that question because Emerald has a specific journal which is only for cases. As an editor, I can only say, for example, there's a journal called Journal of Cases on Information Technology, JCIT, which only take cases, by the way. It's a specific journal which I can tell, and not from an Emerald's perspective, but from a different publisher's perspective. They are only publishing cases. Their job is to only publish case. They will not publish a review article or an article for that matter. But I mean, Sangeeta can probably answer that question because there's a specific dedicated journal with whatever I remember in Emerald. Michael Goldman is the editor-in-chief and he takes care of only the cases in that. But the process and the situation, I think Sangeeta would be the right person to answer that.
Thank you, Dr. Behel. Yes, we have emerging market case study and also the compact compact cases journal that we publish, and both have slightly different functions in terms of what case studies they take in. And other than that, there are a lot of journals that do publish case studies. Now, the ones which I had mentioned earlier, they require teaching notes, so that's where they'll be different. But you can find that information on the website of any publisher. When it comes to submitting case studies in a journal, you have to go through the aims and scope because if you have like 200 journals in marketing, they each are differentiating themselves from the other journals in specific ways, and some accept case studies, some don't, and they might be some will accept book review, some don't. So you will have to go through the scope and aims and scope of the journal to know which ones do take your research cases, so for publishing. Are there any other questions? Yeah.
No questions. We have. I've not taken up the one that talk about publishing, like Professor Devasri said that we're going to have a separate session, 2 sessions covering those. So I've taken that, but everything related to Dr. Behl's presentation have been covered. Thank you so much for the wonderful session. If I can please invite Miss Kaushaliani to do the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Disha. So good afternoon, distinguished guests and respected participants. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, in collaboration with Emerald Publishing, for the successful completion of the 4th session of the Faculty Development Program 2023. So first and foremost, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to the main speaker of the today's session, Dr. Abhishek Behl, Assistant Professor, Management Development Institute, Gurugram, India. Sir, it was indeed an inspiring and eye-opening session. At the outset, I would also like to express my profound gratitude to the Faculty of Management Studies of the Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, headed by Professor Athula Nyanapala. Further, I would like to express my special gratitude to Professor M.S.M. Aslam, Chairman, Research and Publication Unit, and all the other members of the Research and Publication Unit of the Faculty of Management Studies for their unconditional support. So I would also like to express our sense of obligations to Professor Janthan Devasiri, Chairperson for the Faculty Development Program, whose visionary approach and dedication played a pivotal role in initiating this progress and for the successful of the sessions. A special word of thanks goes to Ms. Sangeeta Menon, Chairperson for the Faculty Development Program, Emerald Publishing, and Ms. Disha Lakhnapal, Chief Organizer of the Faculty Development Program, Emerald Publishing, for their collaboration in organizing this remarkable event. My deepest gratitude also goes to the organizing committee, particularly to Ms. Chanita Ratnasiri, Program Secretary, Faculty Development Program, and Ms. Dimuthu Vijayaratna, Assistant Secretary, Faculty Development Program, who meticulously planned and executed every aspect of this Faculty Development Program. Finally, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the audience, including all the senior professors, senior academics, researchers, industry participants, research students, and our exclusive media partner, Lake House Publishers, owned by Associated Newspapers of Ceylon Limited, for their active participation throughout these sessions. So with that note, hoping to meet you all with the 5th session of the Faculty Development Program on the 7th of November at 12:30 p.m. via the GoToWebinar platform, which will be delivered by Ms. Sangeeta Menon on how to improve article acceptance rate and publish quicker, a publisher's perspective. So please kindly note that the same joining link can be used to the future sessions as well. So with that note, I would like to conclude today's session. Thank you once again for each and every personality who joined the session, and have a nice day ahead.
Thank you very much. A special thank you to Professor Abhishek for wonderful session.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Bye.